I could find in the main medium facility I was at, Stafford Creek, and we had a table of 6 guys that were growers, and we all watched each other's backs like a crew, like a real crew, from all the actual predators and all the people who wanted to harm us or victimize us for later. You know what I mean? And like those things are real. I mean, any specific questions, like what's the craziest thing I saw? I saw a guy that was a paisa, right? A paisa is sort of a guy from Mexico that's not with the North or the South as far as the Southern Hispanic gangs go. I saw,
Okay.
so they're kind of like guys that mostly only speak Spanish or don't speak a lot of English. They're more the types that are like they have like a Western motif out on the streets and stuff. They might work for the cartel, so they might sell cocaine, but they might have, a studded out F-150 and a rhinestone cowboy hat and be, grandpapi cocaina, you know what I mean? And these are the type of guys that you don't really expect much from. They're smaller guys in stature a lot of times, real dark skin. They're also quiet due to the language barrier thing, but they're really serious. And one day I was eating hot dogs in E Unit in Walla Walla in the West Complex. I lived in cell 112, and I was just outside of my cell, maybe 10 or 15 feet. I was sitting there with a couple of guys, a couple of Italian guys, and we were having a nice conversation while we had some lunch, you know. And that day, the Pisces had some type of internal issue, and a guy had come out with a sharpened toothbrush and attempted to take his mate's head off while we were sitting there eating hot dogs. And I mean, to the point where blood was spurting all over the day room, to where they were like, "Don't eat the food, sell in, sell in." The alarms go off. He's sawing on the dude's neck with a homemade implement. I'm like, man, this is a lot crazier than war, you know? And then
Yeah.
I just kind of filled in. I mean, I've watched guys stabbed in front of my cell, and me and my cellie have put down towels to keep the blood out of our cell so we didn't have to clean up because it's disgusting and they could have HIV or hepatitis. No offense to anyone who does, but I don't want to catch it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, man, it ain't the place to be. Uh,
Not the place to be, my man. It is definitely not the place to be.
no,
Anyone
I'm
who says
getting.
they've been there and they ran shit or they called shots or they were this or they were that is kind of like typically a lot of stuff is red flags. A lot of stuff that flies online but gets called out in person places. It just ends up being like red flags. It's almost like scammers use some forms of red flags essentially to like rally people around or to gather them, or get their attention. So like the tough guy stuff is kind of wild. When I hear about older heads talking about the felon days, typically it's not great. I have a lot of stories, whether it be, me helping guys that were meth cooks learn to grow pot in a structured environment, or whether they be watching guys get their heads sawed off, you
Yeah,
know?
it's pretty fucked. That anybody gets put in prison for anything to do with cannabis and has to be subjected to that kind of shit.
So I
You're
wanted
so
to
out of place in
ask you a
American
question.
prison. When you go to cannabis for American prison, you're so out of place, Blue Skies, that the rest of the people there will convince you, no matter how hardcore you think you are, that you're not the type of person that should actually be there. They'll let you know because they let me know.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So
I'm a pretty rough cat. You know what I'm saying? But I had guys being like, "Look, man, you think you're tough or whatever, and you're from Tacoma and this and that, but now you're in here with the toughest guys in the whole state. Some of them from the federal system, some of them from other states, and we're just visiting. You know what I mean? Like Ricky over there, he's a serial killer. Jeff, he is too. And it's like, wow. At one point, one of my cellies, his job every day was to make pancakes for the Green River Killer. He had to go to another facility, get strip searched, go in there, cook his food on camera. The guy's a total freakazoid. You know what I mean? So it was uncomfortable for him ethically and morally. He's on camera the whole time while he's doing it, so it's awkward physically at work. The reason he's on camera is because guys were putting bodily fluids. Let's call them bodily fluids. Guys were putting bodily fluids into his food and sending it to the Green River Killer, like just to troll him and fuck with him, do fucked up
Yeah.
shit because they could. So I understood everyone's sort of position, and it was just like, yeah, man, Sally, go get your money. He wanted that $45 a month you get paid for store, you know what I mean? And the
Yeah.
access to multiple meals a day. So I just said, run it, man. What else are you gonna do, you know?
Yeah,
Well,
man.
hopefully you don't find yourself in that environment again, bro.
No, I highly doubt that. I live in a place I can be pretty rough in Washington. I live in a place that's got a law called the mutual combat where we can I could call you out in Washington. That's different than California. California, they kind of got to drive by and shoot you or do the get your homies and do the gang thing. You know what I mean? I can actually go to someone individually here in Washington and be like, hey, man, bumped into you at this bar, crazy. Would you like to come outside and fight me? Or would you like to just squash the beef right here because you're a bitch? I'll be outside waiting to find out. And that's completely legal here. As long as you don't maim, murder, or stomp the guy when he's on the ground, you're totally fine. People here fight all
Yeah,
the time.
that's a good
Yeah,
law.
huge
Yeah.
difference in cannabis culture from California to here too.
So I wanted to ask you a question with the whole prison system and stuff like that. So, or just with how the laws are. So right now in California, what you're seeing cartel members that have crossed the borders and they're practically setting up slave plantations of cannabis growers and forcing the people to grow cannabis, and they're tapping into water lines and all this sorts of stuff. And the reason why they aren't being arrested is not only due to the fact that it's a misdemeanor over there now, but also due to the fact that it would trigger like a little mini war in that county. Do you think any of this is like fair at all compared to the way they would treat growers back then for doing illegal things?
It's a dicey situation having a potential cartel war in like Nevada County, California, isn't it?
Definitely dicey, but like, you think they'd treat Americans like that if Americans were doing that as
Oh,
well, like with
in the
M4s?
country of in the country of Mexico itself. Oh no, you'd have to pay quite a bit. You'd be taxed in Mexico for
No,
any
this,
transaction.
yeah, no, if no, no, just even Americans doing that in LA, like holding down a whole little spot, having their own ARs and stuff like that. Like,
We we have some stuff up here where the law enforcement in Washington chases after some groups that are from Asia
yeah,
and like to blow out houses up here. I've never had a problem personally with those guys in my life. They've always been I liked their weed even. You know what I mean? But I kind of saw like I mean a fella just looks at the news and looks at what's going on and looks at what's happening and makes reasonable assumptions, you know? Like I'm am I overjoyed that they're chasing them right now and not me? No, not really. I don't think anyone should be chased for weed, but I would want people to, you know, act reasonable with it. It is a commodity. It is a sacred herb. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And like, so those are hard questions, you know, to answer, especially about California, because the politic down there is so different from the politic up here in Washington. And our people from other places growing would be Chinese, and theirs would be Mexican cartel people, and those are two different groups, you know.
yeah, nah, yeah, it makes sense. But like, yeah, I think it goes a little too far when you're like tapping water lines and stuff like that, and then billing another person upwards of three
I've
thousand a month. Yeah,
I've never taken a person and forced them to grow for me. I've
yeah,
never transplanted people into different countries to do that. I've never stole personally. I've never stole power before. Just because like I figured, fuck, it's weed. I could if I can't pay for the power, I need to quit because I suck. You know. Um, but like I had an era where I was a poacher as a kid and you know was running around living on the reservation for 20 years and not listening to the law at all. After I got out of the Marine Corps in the early 2000s, I really didn't want to cut my hair anymore. I really wanted to smoke dope. I really wanted to raise a family and be left alone. I really wanted my privacy and me and my woman to just be straight, you know?
Nah, yeah, that
And
makes sense.
that also entailed falling in with poachers again, like I had when I was a child, and around my stepdad, and poaching deer and guerrilla growing on federal land, and um, taken to this older system we have of kind of training a protege and taking one partner at a time and only really trusting a small group of people. Like that part of the lifestyle I sunk my teeth into then. So that part of me always says, fuck it, tap the river. My English ancestry that came from England and came through for Kentucky on my mom's side, it'd say use that water, it makes good whiskey.
Yeah. Nah, yeah, that I think that's a little more respectable, at least, compared
It
to
is. It is compared to the
billing
situation
someone
you're
else. Yeah.
describing. Yeah, absolutely, man. And it's now, so now we've gone into the future from that, right? And we're in the current,
Hmm.
and look at how many more layers of things and how much more toxic and hot to touch those things are. When 30, 40 years ago, our predecessors could easily discuss these things and remain friends. Now there's all types of things dragged in that make it much more difficult.
Yeah, 100%, bro. So, to follow it up, now that we're more on old time topic, what do you think personally is the most narcotic weed you've ever smoked and the most psychedelic weed you've ever smoked?
Brickweed from when I was a kid that we had grown out. Before we had crossed it with anything here, it was pretty early. And that might have been some of the more psychedelic like experiences I've ever had. So it'd be like what you would probably say now or consider to be old from that mid 90s era, Mexican and Colombian mixed together, probably. Like that's really taken me for a loop quite a few times. When I was a kid, I was just a kid too, body size wise and tolerance wise. So actual good kind bud that came over in the form of brick here. Some of it would hit hot like that. Some of it was garbage, though. Like, don't get me wrong. Like a
Yeah.
good percentage of those seeds we popped were fucking terrible, and I couldn't even get any of them to finish completely here outside at all. But I would say that's probably some of the more like racier psychedelic type of stuff. And then, I mean, there's a ton of weed that's narcotic at dosage. You know what I mean? Um, there are weeds here that are seen as like real narcotic locally in Washington. Like Jinx has a Jesus OG cross. That's a 9-pound hammer. He calls 9-pound hammer.
Yeah.
Some expressions in that are known to be pretty sedative, like for patients and stuff. And we've seen that feedback come back in mass over the course of the 6,000 plus medical patients that we try to see every year in Western Washington here. Shout out to the Wise Guys crew. Shout out to the Red Barn. Shout out the Evergreen Eddie, Fatty Dabs, Reclaim Rob, everyone in the medical crews, Evie, all those people. You know what I mean? If you're listening, you all know who you are. We're pretty deep in this podcast. Hey, howdy. Thanks for all the hard work. I know we didn't give out medals or whatever, but this might be the best it's gonna get. you know?
Yeah, man. Nah. Yeah, no, that is solid though. Those are some solid choices there.
Malawi Gold is the
Yeah, I mean,
most psychoactive thing I've smoked.
Yeah,
which one
Malawi
is?
Gold.
Malawi Gold.
Interesting. I love those type of highs, man. It's hard here in Washington though with the rain and the season.
Somebody told me just recently, it surprised me that they said the kind of effects we're just talking about now, the kind of visual sort of thing, that it's quite uncommon in my experience. But somebody growing my eucalyptus skunk said that that's what they're experiencing. Nice highs, but like kind of slightly trippy visuals before bed type thing.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I do know. It's a little bit different than a lot of edible, but it's got some similarities. And
I've only had that. Sorry, go on.
if you've taken that ride before, you know that you've taken that type of ride before. That's for sure. It's
Oh
very
yeah.
different than
Yeah.
other drugs.
I've only had it with Malawi Gold, like I say, and it was like kind of you get these green traces at the edge of your vision kind of thing. It wasn't full on like hallucinations or anything, but there was a hallucinatory aspect, as in there was visual disturbances, that wasn't the norm of most cannabis, literally like you would see off your vision like little bits of green light. It's hard to explain, but there's only one I've had, one cannabis variety that I've had that I would say was truly had some psychedelic aspect to it in that way, and yeah, that was
Yeah,
Manila Gold.
a lot of cannabis use and like an expressions that can be described as adjacent to those people give them a lot of paranoia, and I find that to be commonly reported too. So like in the States, like for people who haven't really smoked weed that would be considered outright psychedelic in its properties, it's really like paranoid type weed to the 10,000th. I mean, it's a lot stronger. It's a lot more palpable of an experience. It's not so like window peaky and speedy, but there are elements of it like that. I could see how
Yeah.
someone would relate the two very easily over here. You know what I really like, Blue Skies, that you might be into. I like White Widow and Northern Lights crosses.
Yeah, yeah,
Some of
yeah.
the some of those were nice and stony and
Bro,
L5.
I've had White Widow grown by Shanty, Mr. Nice, and yeah, it was very, very good. There was a time actually, just reminded me like there was a time when fucking White Widow was the thing in the UK. I think it was just before cheese just become ridiculous, and it was like nothing but cheese. Before cheese, it was White Widow. That was like the number one cash crop everybody was growing back then. It was good, man.
Oh, I wish cheese would come back. I've smoked a UK. We had a UK cushion cheese over here with the crew that was just phenomenal and cheesy. And you don't see good weed that's cheesy a lot right now here.
I
So it's like
spent a
I've
long
been
time
fiending for
wishing cheese was go extinct, man, because that's all that fucking UK wanted. I was like,
Yeah.
so much times, if I'd had the opportunity to press a button and make cheese disappear off the face of the earth, I'd have done it in a heartbeat. I'm glad I didn't now, though, because I still see a few people growing the real Exodus cut in the UK, and I see it, and it reminds me of what it looked like. And yeah, I'm glad people still got it. I might like to grow it myself one day, or perhaps even use it in a breeding project, as it does have that fucking loud terp profile that's unmistakable.
I feel that way about Blue Dream.
Yeah.
That's how Blue Dream played out here on the West Coast quite a bit. We were all just like super sick of it after a while, and it got real midsy, green crack kind of same type of thing, real midsy after a while. Just like, a lot of strains are like that. They're not good commercial growers, and commercial guys get a hold of them and run them. And then
It's
you
like the
get
first
what
time you get it, you love it. I remember the first time I got
right.
real cheese. I'm not gonna lie, I was impressed. And then it just got to the point where I fucking hated it.
I got a white rhino that it's really been a thing. Like we didn't have a lot of Cali DNA up here when I was a kid in the 90s and the early 2000s, and we didn't really have um Washington was kind of a mix of stuff that they had put together from GIs on base and guys that had traveled. Some heads in Seattle, some glass blowers, some fishermen that had ties with the Alaskan guys, and some natives that had ties with the Hawaiians. And that's kind of what made Washington pot. Crew put their weed together that way. You can see it in the lineage of the Northern Lights varieties and how Hawaiian um, plays into there. And
Yeah.
those growers and some of those old guys are still around, like Greg's still around.
Those white rhino were good back in the day, man. That white rhino that was around what year? 2000, 2001 I had it, and that was fucking great.
I started seeing it during that period when I was out, when I was talking about being really private and living on the reservation.
Yeah.
We would go from the reservation out into Tacoma. There was a sandwich shop. I won't say the name of it in case they're still slinging right now, and I don't know it. But there was a sandwich shop right on the bay, and you could go in and get yourself, a tuna on rye and an eighth, and they had the hog and the white rhino, and they had some fishing boats and stuff, but we're some East Coast guys, and just mariners, you know what I mean? Sea legs and all, pirates like the rest of us, and they started pumping packs here, and they were pumping packs real steady, and it really made a difference kind of in the scene and how we all sort of looked at stuff, because we had our own weeds and our own crews, and they were moving things the way they move them. And the guys in Seattle were restricted to having one light, so they all had small grows, and it was more boutique and more about the botany. And the Tacoma guys were pushing lines, some guys one way, some guys the other way, as far as botany or horticulture and having blowout flower crops or trying to make some crosses and or move things forward. And you know what the prohibition like eras are like. Everyone stays small and keeps quiet and kind of keeps to themselves. I'm a little social butterfly. I like to get out and about, and I like to talk to people, you know. The first time I really seen what I would consider an elite clone is a white rhino clone here in Washington. And it really is true to the name Medicine Man. I really respect Shanti Baba's work because of that.
Yeah, that
Because
was the last golden age of fucking cannabis almost, I think, before shit started to just go downhill massively. Like that little fucking heyday Shanti had, where he was like the top of his game, and he, you know, was White Rhino, White Widow, all this El Nino, that kind of thing.
right.
That fuck when he was when he sort of like left Greenhouse and teamed up with Howard Marks as like the face of his company. Fucking that was the best era, I think. And I think after that, stuff just
Have,
started to go downhill rapidly. You know.
have you had a lot of luck with Greenhouse's work?
Um, I haven't grown a lot of greenhouses work, to be honest. I've grown their Super Lemon Haze back in the day. Um, that was nice commercial plant, really. I can't fucking lie. It tasted of lemon and it was decent enough smoke. Um, but yeah, it's about the extent of my fucking involvement of having grown anything from greenhouse.
I only tried one thing, and it was kind of I was just being a, what do you guys call it, a cheeky bugger? I was just being a cheeky bugger and got it. And it was he had done like a California expedition. You know how he does the strain hunters thing?
Yeah.
He'd come down to California though, and not like made an episode or whatever, but just grabbed some jeans. And one of the things he had picked up was an AFGU. And we used to have AFGU. One of my original partners up here used to run an AFGU, and it stood toe to toe, you know, with the white rhino packs in its day. I mean, we're talking, you know, real time data from customers, and us as smokers, not even being prejudiced about our own stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So he got this AFGU from somebody, I don't know where, and made
Is
some
that the
of
same
the
as Afgui?
yes.
Yeah. Because there's a dude, is it Afgui breeder? Is
So
this
that's a
Uh,
that's a guy associated with it sometimes. Sometimes Matt writes trifling ass is associated with it. There's a lot
I've
of people
seen Bodie cross it as well.
Yeah,
yeah,
a few of
they
my
have
friends
access
on
to it.
the private forum likes that Afgui thing, and I'm sure he says it was that Afgui breeder it came from. Not even sure if he went on the forum, you know. I think we just had some crosses from him or something. But yeah, yeah. So what were you going to say about that? Was
So
greenhouse
that
version
one
any good?
so that one was pretty good pot, man. It was pretty kind. And it
Yeah,
had like a particular type of expression that it threw it the the actual physical plant, you know, that my buddy had and had been cropping and making clones of and stuff. And then it was still pretty early on making clones. We're talking about like 0304. The actual one he had though grew kind of gnarly, and it got big outside here, but it also sort of turned golden or brown. So it was like it had its sort of like marketable features, and it also had its detractors. And you don't see pot like that much anymore. You know, that sort of has a natural goldeny sort of look to it. Everything's sort of dark green or starkly green. Um, we got some of those S1s that our hand had made and ran them, and they had the sort of terps that you would expect from the Africa cut from California reverse, like sort of lemony, like lemon rind and like mild lemon cantaloupe type of flavors almost I would describe them, and then sort of a kindness overall in the experience with the smoke and the taste
yeah. Like I
itself.
said, I've only really done this super lemon haze, and like back in the day when we were doing stuff for other people, like you know, for the market and yeah, that was one that I've run with a friend. And yeah, it was just decent commercial, man. It was really,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
enjoyed the flavor. It was done in a decent time. It yielded well. Yeah, it was a good commercial strain. You know, can't fucking just talk shit on Dutch genetics all the time. I've got to say, fucking, in case he even ever hears this, is probably unlikely, but fucking Aryan ain't too bad a dude. Fucking, I've actually been speaking to him recently, and I know I've made jokes about in the past, like laughing at his the bobblehead doll he sold to that Japanese guy, and
Anyone, the bobblehead doll is like the biggest red flag. Kids out there, if you're listening to this and you see someone in cannabis with a bobblehead, just go the other way for a while until you're a little more experienced, because you
listen,
need some
I've
discernment.
made fun of that, but I just wanted to say I've actually been speaking to
It's such
Aryan
a silly
recently,
thing.
and
Yeah,
he ain't a bad dude. I'll tell you for something. There's a lot of people in the fucking community that are fucking dicks, and but I've got to say he's all right, man. I'm not gonna lie. He's a decent person to speak to. So
yeah. I
far,
highly suspect that the AFGU S1s are real. Having told that story, right? And we got one of the out of our packs. We got an outlier because you know how S1s are. We got an oddball that leaned into sort of a different terp profile, and we were messing around with it. I think that stuff like that is fun and funny. You know what I mean? He's a cheeky bastard for Strain Hunters California with the AFGU selection. So I was like, well, I got to do that just because it's funny.
the only thing I thought was that people talk a lot of shit about him. I've probably said some things in the past, but at the end of the day, people do that about me all the fucking time. People who never spoke to me, never grow my shit, nothing, talk shit about me. So I thought, it's not really, it's
Right.
hypocritical of me to be the fucking same. You know
I
what I
feel
mean?
you.
So
Yeah, I
if
do.
if I don't speak to the guy and he turns out okay, I'm gonna fucking say so too. And
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. And on that tip, I think that Not So Dog is probably someone in particular that you would really get along with. I happen to know that, being around Matt Riot, you can get the wrong impression about some guys, and it's just better to go talk to him. You know what I mean? And like, I think you guys would have a great chat if that was a thing that were to happen, or you met up and smoked some bowls. It would probably be a fun time or a good time, or you would get to, you know, meet someone who's a peer type of situation.
well, when you meet people in person, you're always going to see some good in them. Well, not necessarily, but you're probably going to have more chance of seeing some good in them than fucking just what you see off the internet, obviously.
Yeah, man. And Matt's got this funny way of sending his friends at people, and those friends don't understand it, because he'll be like, boom, boom, boom. This guy did this. This guy did that. This guy did this. And it won't, maybe it's just his perspective. Maybe it's not necessarily the truth. You know what I
Matt's
mean?
just a dweeb, man. That's the only real
And
fucking
then boom.
description I could put on Matt is he is a dweeb. He's a
That's,
fucking dweeb.
it is exactly the type of stuff dweebs do. Just like tell the jock's girlfriend she's getting cheated on and then don't score with the girl. I mean, it's just like, come on, man.
He's a fucking dweeb, isn't he? Some of the shit I've heard that little dweeb say over the years, that's made me laugh. I couldn't be bothered to troll through his fucking YouTube channel again,
Oh
but
man.
you
Oh
know how he
man. I
makes
got
out like
one.
he's a hardcore punk, he's a Satanist. Well,
Yeah.
fucking one day, right,
He
he's going
sent
on.
an exploding box of dicks to the copycat crew. That was another guy's story from the forums that he ripped and threw his name on it. Just fun stuff. There's a lot of Matt isms out there.
What was I going to say about him? This one made me laugh. He makes out like he's a punk rocker, a Satanist, and he's going, Alistair Crowley is this hero. Now, Alistair Crowley is a syphilitic, homosexual, junkie, paedophile, yeah, Satanist. So that's his hero. So anyway, this guy,
Yeah,
he's
he's
then
the not a great guy, right?
yeah, and so he's then I think it's even the same episode of his podcast. He's going on about then how Barbara Bush has died, and he's like, shame, Bush is a poopy people type some bullshit like that, right? And Barbara Bush was fucking Alistair Crowley's daughter. Fucking, this is what a fit cunt he is. He doesn't know anything about anything. He's a plastic Satanist. You know what I mean? He's on one hand, Aleister Crowley's his fucking hero, and then on the other hand, he don't know that Barbara Bush was Crowley's daughter. So, and then he's making fun of her dying. That's the kind of fucking retard Matt is. He's very shallow, doesn't have much knowledge or depth in any fucking particular area of his life, as far as I can tell. He's an
I mean,
absolute
it
goofy
can
dweeb.
sound, yeah, a huckster like that can sound convincing. You know what I mean? And to a degree, he's very convincing at it. You know, he's gotten some. I'm a person that should have known better than to even try to be friends with him. But look at where we're at. You know.
Fuck Matt, right? Let's talk about something else.
Yeah,
You're
he's
big buddies with Tino, aren't you?
yeah. Me and Tino have
I
been
see a lot of your
acquaintances.
posts seem to be about him. I don't know the fucking guy, but I'm sure he's never fucking done me a solid. So you talk shit on him if you want.
So
It's only
I've
one
been.
other person I'm gonna fucking upset.
We can go that route. That's fine. No, this is fun.
Anybody fucking bases his whole company around the biggest fucking paedophile code name in the world has got serious issues. That's all I can say.
It's a strange move. And then to falsely accuse a whole bunch of people of being pedophiles as if he was the American seed maker's answer to Kendrick Lamar. That's odd. You know, some people might think that's a bit of projection, but to give your audience and my friends that are listening some type of proper context, you know, I do these big prison bids, man. It's not fun. You know, I hope I never go back. But the last 15 years have been shot for me as far as keeping up with people's business. So periodically, I got to come back out and see who people have become, see who people are. One time I went to jail, copycat was Big Dan Green Thumb. Another time I get out, he's copycat. You know, like these things change quite a bit, pretty frequently and pretty fast. So I do my looking around, and this time around, you know, I'm a cannabis writer. I've got a series of books out. Got my book out. I've got work that I've done with Ed Rosenthal. It's all sort of a complete little library of pot books. So it kind of behooves me, since I'm going to be interacting on the internet with people who read grow books, and young growers and new growers and people who are enthusiastic and people who are gullible. It behooves me to kind of take a really hard look around. And I like to tell people that they coming into the game here in America, you should really watch these guys for a year before you give them $1. You should watch them for a whole year. You see if they burn their partners, see if they jettison their crews, if they start new stuff. You can see a lot of stuff in the course of a year, like as far as patterns of behavior that a person has, you know. So I was watching Tino for quite a while and interacting with him, and he had what seemed to be on its surface a sort of platform for the American guys, at least, and I guess some of the Australian guys here and there touch around, and some other people from Canada and whatnot. Big people bump in onto this IG Live sort of platform that he built across the space of a bunch of accounts. And it's called a beatdown. And essentially the premise is that this is a place to talk out your differences or argue them out or just scream at each other if that's what you need to do. If you're in the cannabis space here in America and you're under the pressures that we're under, and we're making the type of moves that we all are in different states and different places with different codes of ethics, cultures, and sets of rules, it seems like a good idea on the surface that a format like that would be necessary to sort of like solve disputes. But what it actually is this guy getting weird and getting drunk late at night online and talking a bunch of trash. And you can never. I sort of wanted to coax Matt Riot. Hey, Matt, I know you're listening to this. I wanted to coax Matt Riot on there just to have a chat with him. You know what I'm saying, about some of the stuff that he's been up to and some of the things he's been saying and some of the goings on and whatnot on the backstage of what the cannabis space in America is, inside of forums and DMs and across, you know, the pond, if it will, like by a Wi-Fi. It's just sad, kind of, that these guys, you start learning about a guy as time goes on. And then I watched this guy for, you know, at that point of maybe, let's say, a year and a half, I've watched him. And we've had an interaction that was strange. And I was like, well, that was weird and overly racially charged. I'm going to go ahead and look the other way, though. Maybe that's like a political thing. Maybe there's something going on with the guy. maybe the people right around him are strange, right? And I kind of get into it with the people floating around him, his internet orbiters, if you will. Things aren't good. They're real colorful. The exchanges aren't great, you know? And I'm not typically the type of person that receives overt racism online in America. Like I'm a veteran. I'm mixed race person. I'm in America. I'm a few different things. It's not complex to understand. You know what I mean? But every once in a while, you know, I piss off a real skinhead, or I piss off a real Klan member, or I piss off a real prison shot caller from a white boy gang. And that gets their attention. You know what I mean? So I began
Well, I think
interacting a
that's
second.
what he's about, to be honest. This sounds just like a whole load of fucking bullshit that any fucking sane person wouldn't fucking engage with.
Right. I am definitely not all the way sane, Blue Skies. I mean, anyone who writes a book is crazy, in my opinion. I advise young people do not write books. This is a passion and a career choice that is very,
No, I
very
meant the whole thing with Tino, his whole fucking, his
oh.
little forum for fucking having like beefs with people.
I thought you meant me, and I was like,
no,
maybe
you
a
fucking
little.
nutter. I mean, no, fucking hell. No, let me make that clear. Everything you just described about Tino and what he does, because like I say, I got no beef with the guy. I don't want to beef with the guy. If he wants a beef, I don't give two shits. I'll just ignore him. I'm not interested in him the slightest.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to hear what you had to say about him, because you've been posting about him. Now you told me, I'm like, fucking, I wouldn't even engage with that goofball clowns at all, man.
Second time, and just for a
Put that
gas,
shit on block.
I asked him what he thought of you. I came around a second time, you know, and I asked him what he thought of you, which I thought, you know, he probably doesn't even know who this guy is. And he said that you said it. He said that I shouldn't do your podcast because you asked him if he was in the Illuminati.
I asked
and I
him
was
if
like,
he's in the Illuminati.
I was like, are you in the Illuminati?
Are you in the? No, oh my god, this guy is a cunt.
Yeah,
You
that
are
was just straight
spastic.
making shit up, bro.
Yo, if you
No,
said
not
that,
you. He said that you asked him if he was in the Illuminati. Yeah,
oh
that
my
was his
god,
problem with you.
is this guy? Oh man, I'm not even going to engage that. You are a grade A spastic, Tino. I've never fucking asked you about anything to do with the fucking Illuminati. You're a fucking nonce, which is what we call pedos over here, by the fucking looks of it. You know, it's about time you fucking disassociated yourself from all things pizza, you fucking weirdo. And as for the Illuminati, they're a bunch of, if there is, it's not Illuminati, it's basically Freemason fucking losers. So fucking, that's what the majority of it is. So I, you know, as if I'm like a spastic who believes in the concept of an Illuminati in that way, that a goof like Tino could be a part of it. Oh my lord.
He's rather goofy.
Wow, that's embarrassing. Fucking hell, this cunt's going on block if he's not on block already. So yeah.
It's you know, I mean, his platform isn't what it says it is. Some of his genetics are white label. Some of his antics are a little over the top.
Is he even
You know
Italian?
what I mean?
My bad. But
Is
is
he
he Italian?
I don't know exactly. I've never
Okay.
like typically
I'll
Italian
take
guys
that as a
don't
no
act the
then.
way that he like
Exactly.
typically Italian guys don't act the way that he does. Typically Italian guys don't join, like they don't run prison yards or are in white boy gangs or any of that type of thing here. It can happen. I've experienced it once, and it's one of the times that I have had to keep separate put on me in the prison system here. That's what we call it when two prisoners can't be in the same facility. There was a guy from my area named, well, you know what? I'm not going to say his name because that's not, let's just keep that out of it.
Yeah.
But there's a fella from here that is kind of the nephew of a guy that owns a bunch of strip clubs, and they're a pretty powerful family. And he chose to join the Aryan Brotherhood when he was doing some time in the federal system. And when he came back to the state system, all of us were confused, you know. And for some reason, he called me out. And I'm on the first thing smoking, man. If you want a problem or beef or whatever, we can figure that out, you know, especially at home in Washington. So that's how that went. We got into it a couple times. And the guards just ended up being like, this is a security thing. We have to keep you guys separate.
So you were in prison with Tino at the same time.
No,
No,
it's a
there's
guy
No,
named
who are you on about? If I missed the point here.
no, it's a guy named Tommy. It's a different guy.
Oh, sorry. I missed that bit.
But I think that Tino might be a similar type of guy. I don't know. I mean, it'd be safe to say like if he's Italian and he's running level 3 prison yards in Cali in a wood, like that doesn't line up. Either he's lying or that's the case. It's a Tommy type of situation, you know.
Fuck Tino too. We can fucking move on from that goofball too.
Yeah, those guys are weird. So you've been finding everything up in the skunks, huh? Like people are reporting back similar to skunk cabbage. People are reporting back similar. Skunk is a pretty interesting animal, like the mephistus or whatever its scientific name is. We've got both kinds here and skunk cabbage. I grew up sort of around them myself, like out here poaching and just being a woodsman and a guerrilla grower, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
as you know, I've never smelled a skunk. I'm from the UK. I don't know anything about skunks. We've got no fucking concept whatsoever.
It's a
I couldn't tell you about them. I couldn't tell you
there.
about them.
We got both kinds here, Blue Skies. We've got the spotted skunk and we've got the striped skunk. And then the skunk cabbage, which is another version of a similar smell set. The skunk cabbage is a very special plant that falls into a very small category of thermophilic plants, and it creates its own heat, which is pretty rare in the plant world.
Yeah.
And when you bite into it, like sometimes we'll give it to children and tell them to bite it, and it's really bitter. And then the smell from biting it is like a very pungent skunk-ish smell. You know what I'm saying? And that's why it's called skunk cabbage. A lot of times people will smell it after deer grazed on it after the winter. It's so thermophilic that it's the first thing to pop. And you'll see, like, if there's a little snow on the ground, some years you'll even see it like repel a little ring of snow around itself and then begin to start to grow before everything else does. It's really fast.
Well, if anybody does want to see an example of a plant that has been described as skunk cabbage, follow Got Your Trees 420 on Instagram. He's got a skunk cabbage plant he found in the Boss Pack. There's a few other people I can't think off the top of my head right now. But yeah, skunk cabbage comes up. And obviously, just to go back to these twats that say stuff like, oh, blue skies are from fucking England. There's no fucking skunks over there. Fucking those retarded twats. Right, this is how I knew. This is how I knew I had skunk, right? I had ESB haze, as I explained earlier, 4 component parts: Nigerian, skunk, blueberry, haze. I fucking F2'd it. I grew out the F2s. I found blueberry because I know what blueberry smells like. I found fucking haze because I know what haze is like. And then I found this land racy thing with not much going for it, which is clearly the Nigerian. And then I found the most revolting fucking thing I've ever smelled in my twatting life. And guess what? That was fucking skunky spastics. And that's how I knew. Fucking hell.
Skunk spray in real life is very revolting. It's got a range. The farther you are away from it, the more pleasant it is, and the more like
loads of different nuances of skunk
from cannabis are. You get close to a skunk bath or get directly sprayed, you're vomiting everywhere uncontrollably.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, listen, if it don't make you gag the first time you smell it, it ain't the fucking best skunk, because it took me about 2 weeks, literally took me 2 weeks of daily acclimation of smelling this fucking flower to stop fucking having a gag reflex on some of them. You know, there's different levels of skunk. There's like the classic skunk. I call it plain skunk, which is just like the skunk, musky, skunky aroma of the animal. Yeah. Then there's like the spray, and then there's fucking like the dead carcass with skunk. There's skunk with ammonia and the more cat piss type skunks. There's skunk with lemon.
So an actual roadkill animal, like if you run over a skunk, it releases its glands in the street there, right? Yeah. And then in the summertime, you'll start to smell the rotting body mixed with that aroma. And while you're driving the car, it's whipping in and out faster of your car.
This is exactly what's been described by people, bro.
That's the most pleasant version of a skunk smell and skunk cabbage is that. Yeah. Everything else is rancid past that.
That has been described multiple times. Skunk baked on a hot road, a hot tarmac for 3 days when you run over it and the gland, all that people have said. Every version of skunk literally has been found in my packs. That skunk, the skunks, and this is obviously American people, Canadian people, which all know
Right.
exactly what skunk is like, dead skunk or skunk spray. All of those have been found consistently. That's why I've had 53 fucking accounts in the last 4 years. Every single one of them, people have posted skunk spray, skunk carcass, skunk this, that, and the other. And as I say,
And
I've
you're
got
getting
all the skunks, bro.
and you're getting variants that lean into being different degrees of cat pissy and poopy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's what I say. There's all the shits. There's
That's
fucking
so
baby
nice.
shit. No, it's not. I don't like them, man. Baby shit, baby
I
shit,
like I like the
adult human
different.
shit. That's disgusting. Adult human shit. If you get one that smells like an adult human shit, that's disgusting to me. Dog shit, that's fucking disgusting. And the worst is when they taste how they smell. That's just unsmokable to me. Hate it.
Yeah,
So yeah.
a little transfer from aroma to flavor on human fecal matter might be unpleasant. Yeah, I could see where that would be not great.
Yeah, I've had plants
Yeah.
where I can smoke half a spliff, bro, and then that is it. There's not a chance I'm smoking any more of it. Just that joint to try, and the first joint is unsmokable. It's just too fucking disgusting and foul. But yeah, I've got all the rank stuff. If you're not aware, if you're quite a new fucking listener or follower, or even you, Josh, right, this is the type of shit you can find in a Turp Town ticket in terms of the more rank stuff. There's all kinds of cat piss and urine and public urinal, all that kind of thing. So there's the urine
Oh, that's
side.
interesting. Public journal. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, that's common. There's all the shits, as I've said, dog shit, human shit of various kinds. People have said very specifically who work with these animals, badger shit and fox shit, um, cat piss, and then things like the vomits. There's like some that are just absolute straight stomach bile, and they just make your stomach churn. A stomach churning, repulsive vomit, and then there's all
My
body
uncle had one that
odor.
smelled like a hot dumpster when I was a kid. Like I don't, I was still every time I smell a dumpster in the summertime and it's like wet and gross and leaking old garbage out the bottom,
Well,
and you can
that is
visibly
the
smell it walking by.
dumpster juice on a hot day is a common fucking find.
Yeah,
That's literally a description that's been put out loads of times. Even now, Deadly's Roots, he's been on our show. He's growing Star 23. He sent me a picture today or a video today. He said it smells just like fermenting fruit in a dumpster. Um, so yeah,
amazing.
all of these fermented things as well. They're common in my stuff. Garlic, onion, pickling vinegar. There's all kind of burnt things like burnt plastic, burnt wood, campfire smoke. I'm not really a massive fan of that, but it's there. All smoky, burnt shit, burnt plastic, burnt rubber, common. Chlorine. There's alcohols. This is going in the wider spectrum of everything I've got now, but like red wine, port wine, Chinese lizard wine that I've got. There's different kind of like red wine sort of smells and
Yeah, those are. I
flavors.
like red wine sort of smells. Those are nice too.
Yeah, there's little bubble gums being found. All every fruit you can think of, literally all the lemon, lime, orange, grapefruit. There's been durian fruit. There's been lychee, bananas, cherries, apple, blueberry, strawberry, gooseberry. Any fruit you can fucking think of practically has been found. I've just encapsulated, just like so. That's why I said earlier, I could not possibly have set out to or expected to have encapsulated just how much of that old timer one gene pool that I have done on purpose. No way could I have done that on purpose, or it possibly imagined the literal hundreds of different terp profiles. Well, say hundreds. Let's say close to 100, probably. I stopped counting when there'd been like 60 plus different fucking terp profiles found in my packs. It's fucking wild. So yeah, that's why I say that comes from God, not me, man. That's not my fucking doing, not my
And you met
intention anyway. To have
you met
ended
Old
up with
Timer
all of that.
One. You started knowing who Old Timer One was and talking to him because of those forums over there, the UK
Yeah,
forums and
UK
whatnot.
420. I was on that. I joined that in the early 2000s.
That's awesome. And then he's one of the guys that like started that whole situation off, right? He was fundamental in its forming.
Well, yeah, well, he was on Overgrow before that. He was like a real old timer, you know. He was around in all the very first sort of times anything to do with cannabis was on the internet, you know, like or even like early internet type shit. I remember him saying from the 80s or something, or some kind of fucking online thing like that. It was something that was like that. Yeah, fucking. But yeah, he was just like around from the beginning, you know. I guess he's older than fucking, you know, Dave Watson, Sound Skunk Man, all that kind of thing. You know, he's the original. He's dead now, obviously, but he died in his
Right.
90s.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense why he would go by the name Old Timer for a bunch of different reasons too.
Yeah, yeah. So I didn't know him especially fucking well. Just chatted online, really, you know. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. What would you say was your really interest into that stuff? Just a desire to kind of see what those type of gene pools were like, or were you
well,
going?
I was on the forum, and I was younger and fucking more susceptible and gullible to hype. Um, And I'm not saying he was hype or anything like that, but everybody had their dicks out the minute he said he was going to drop a seed line, you know, or make seeds available to the forum. And so there was, you know, people just raved about him, sucked him off constantly, just gave him the highest praise was possible. They were sycophantic, let's put it right. Okay, the guy did do incredible things, but yeah, sometimes it went over the top with certain people. So
Right.
so I obviously wanted to tap into that and see what this was about. You know, everybody's saying everything he's ever put out is, you know, it's just on another level. It's, you know, it's like genius level. And, you know, but he was like the Luther Burbank of cannabis of our times. I'm not going to take nothing away from the guy, even though he did even talk some shit towards the end of his life that was probably fucking perhaps encouraged to. He didn't want any fame, notoriety, anybody hitting him up, asking him questions. You know, but the facts is facts. He did contribute, and he put it out there himself. And I had all the quotes. He even had quotes took down, posts took down off UK 420 after I brought attention to him, because even when I first brought attention to him, he was in his late 80s, and he didn't want people contacting him about skunk or anything, or about seeds, or and he said if people bred with his stuff, he didn't want his name attached, because so many times in the past people have bred with his stuff, and what they had bred was shit in his opinion, so he didn't want his name attached to it. But at the end of the day, my genetics came from him, so I'm always going to fucking credit him, because that's the fucking facts. And in all honesty, what I've got now is better than quite a lot of what I got from him, and that's the fucking truth too. His smile was exceptional, and that's probably in my top 3 or 5 things. So, you know, but all my stuff, a lot of my stuff now is all on that smile level or fucking better. And as I say, I discovered stuff that he had lost. So full respect to Old Timer One and all that. And yeah, anyway, that's how I got into Old Timer One stuff, because I was on that forum. Everybody fucking's going crazy about it. I obviously wanted to
Mhm.
try it. So I would bid up for the seeds, win some of the auctions, get the seeds, grow them. And yeah, they were fucking special. But the first time I popped them, that ESB Haze, it wasn't the fucking greatest thing ever. Now, I have to qualify that. One, it did produce the most potent smoke I've ever fucking experienced in my life to this day still. And I experienced it fucking long time ago, and still not had potency like it since. So, yeah, some of it was extreme potency, but all of it, you had to pick things. Let's say that it wasn't all fucking banging. So, and then when you F2'd it, a lot of the stuff in that was some fucking dog shit. Yes, everything, the best of everything I've ever experienced has come from the Old Timer One gene pool, but also some of the worst shit I've ever experienced has come from that gene pool when I've been working it and going through it. So some things, absolute fucking crap in the F2s, but when you go beyond it and make your selections and then take it in your own direction, then yeah, then you find absolute fucking gold. But for the most part, you know, I can say most stuff from Old Timer One was very good, and it was yeah, we're talking like 4 or 5 or 6 plants that have been shit that I've ever found out of thousands, you know, but they were the shittest I've ever experienced too. So I got to say that. But that could have happened with anyone's gear, I guess, in terms of finding something very shit in its lineage, its ancestry, you know. Especially
Yeah,
when
it
all this
seems to
stuff
be
was
more
old
as we go
lines.
forward in time, we seem to be working stuff everywhere, everyone that can. I mean, it goes from a lot of diversity to some people selecting towards shit and some people selecting towards solid gold. to everyone having solid gold and burning out on that version of it, and then looking back at that original stuff that was more diverse again. It's probably a pattern we've been repeating as human beings for a long time.
Yeah, maybe, and certainly, I just, I just think, you know, the gene pool pretty much gone to shit after 2015, or by 2015, and obviously got worse. And thank God there is this fresh genetic injection, as it were, into the gene
Everyone
pool.
needed it, man. Scenes get played out, things change, new kids come into the scene, old heads retire and pass away. It's a
I don't give
cycle
a
of life.
fuck thinking about it. It was such a sad state of cannabis, really, fucking up to 2020, man. I fucking, if I wouldn't have wanted none of it for myself, really. Very, very little of it. You know,
Yeah,
I'd
there's a
never have
lot of
been a
hip.
breeder without these old school, or I would never have. I don't even call myself. I would never even just say I never even put seeds out if I didn't have the old time one gene pool. I would never have got involved or had the idea of thinking of having anything to do with making seeds and then selling them. not with, not if I was just like everybody else with the same gene pool. You know, I'd have had to have done something like work like Bodie, gone to another country, found some genetics, done some work with that kind of thing. That's why I respect Bodie. He's one of the last people to do shit like that, isn't he?
Those are good moves, man. Anytime you get out of the country and go somewhere and shake a hand and meet a friend on scene, and if you're an astute enough guy to make a reference as to what's there, if you're or an assumption as to what's there, you know what I mean, and move forward and work with that. If you do it in a respectful way, it really is a help and a benefit to everyone involved. The smoker, you, the people that you got it from. You know what I mean? Like I can see only good things when it's positive and a lot of bad stuff when it's not so great. Like a lot of people have made faulty deals or been there on bad intentions to begin with. You know what I mean? It's hard to get out of the US sometimes for guys and get back in. That's a whole like wild situation in and of itself, going to another country and collecting genes and bringing them back and working.
Well,
Um,
exactly. Bodie's done it multiple times, you know?
mhm. Yeah, and
Bodie's done that many times.
guys like that should be given a lot of respect. Like that's a part of the game that's seldom participated in by the large masses. You know what I mean? And yet, the masses tend to reap the benefit off of that, especially with the larger scale breeding projects. Another thing that kind of plays in is like, okay, is your plant commercially viable? Right? Does it have a? Can you get a certain size yield off of it? Does it throw a certain like structure that's conducive to the way we're setting up commercial gardens at any given point in time, in this thing we call weed moving forward. So like cookies isn't really the best cropper of a plant. So you kind of knew that wouldn't stay forever coming out the gate.
Well, a lot of
Yeah,
people seem to be fucking took by it, you know?
I
I
think
It,
grew
it's
it
it
and I thought it was fucking shit.
had some staying power, had a lot more than I thought it would. Good Lord.
It's just to me, it's just like the McDonald's of cannabis, man. It's just fucking
Oh yeah. That's really good. It looks really good on the menu. You're really hungry. You eat the fries and you're still hungry.
Berners Ronald McDonald.
yeah.
Man, that's a good analogy, man. That's a really good one. Yeah, it's got a short high. Cookies. I tend to. My gardening style and techniques personally, like in my own personal gardens that I have, not the ones I share with people, for the ones I work in. Um, my own personal gardens, I like real highlight scenarios. So I like plants that are receptive to that. A lot of cookies and cookies crosses can want a lower light, actually, than like full fucking blast in your face. My shit's on 100%, and it's just a mere matter of inches away from the grow sites instead of feet.
Yeah.
Cookies doesn't like that type of stuff. Cookies basically doesn't do a bunch of things to where I would have tossed it in my program. If I had popped those beans and ran it through, I would have tossed those OGKB phenos or whatever they are, that were working like that, because they're not good for indoor growers. They're not commercially viable. That's kind of a thing that a person should start with. I mean, we're living in the 2024. We're living in 2024.
Well, most of my stuff yields very heavy. It's another fucking common thing people comment on. big fucking yields, big chunky flowers. Not everything does. The sativa stuff tends to dry quite light, but there's certainly a lot of more heavy, denser flower structures to be found. Big fucking, yeah, big yields, man. And that structure, there's a common aesthetic that's quite distinctive in a lot of my plants. And